Right, so I'm going to talk you through them. My first ever mead was called the Devil Mead Me Brew It, which was 14% sweet mead. It was quite nice. It wasn't amazing. I used very cheap honey for it because I wasn't sure what I was doing. And as I've gone along, I've bought better honey, more and more. And if I do something random, I will put cheap honey in because I don't want it to be knackered and then, you know, have wasted expensive honey. Next on the list is probably by far one of the better ones that I've done, probably the best. It says it's 18.5, but I think I calculated that wrong. I think it's more like 14 or 15, and that's the Vikings Blood. I used City Steading's 2021 version of their Vikings Blood, and I think that's the third incarnation they've done. And I tell you what, it was absolutely smashing. The colour is amazing, the flavour is amazing. Next along is the Strawberry and Blueberry Melomel, 14.8%. Again, really nice, but unfortunately there was not enough blueberry in it. The strawberry really masked out the flavour. Next is Mango Mel, which is 12.8 by the look of it. Can't really see that, swore off a bit. And that's literally just a mango melomel, nothing but mango in that. Black Sack Mead, which was an attempt to make an extremely high ABV Blackcurrant mead. It went high, 16.3, but it didn't reach the 18% tolerance, which I believe the yeast I used could have reached, which was a bit unfortunate really, because I really did want to reach that mark, but I've never been able to. I think that's the strongest one I've managed so far. Then I did an experiment which is called Maybemediocre, and I literally just put some honey in a demijohn, added water on top and put yeast on top of that and left it. And day by day you could actually see the level moving down of honey as the yeast ate it. Now, it doesn't have a great deal of flavour, this. It is dry, but I'm gonna have to do a traditional dry without it, because I didn't even mix it, you see. It literally just sat on top of it. So maybe because of the way that it went at it, it's left it lacking a flavour, because it doesn't really taste of anything. It's just like watery tanginess, really. There's not a lot going on in there. This is We Be Jammin', which is... Oh, by the way, with the Maybemediocre, because I didn't mix the must together, I have no idea what the ABV is, because I was unable to take a hydrometer reading. Now, We Be Jammin' is one that I did with some leftover jam and marmalade that was infused with single malt whiskey. Now, that one's okay. It's not that bad. It's not amazing. It's a low ABV of 10.7. And yeah, it's not too bad. Now this is probably one of my favourites. This is the Trojniak, which is the Polish style of mead, where you use 1 part honey to 3 parts water, or 3 parts, I can't remember now. But it means, no, 2 parts water to 1 part honey. So 1 litre of honey and then 2 litres of water. And it made something extremely sweet. Now, someone on Instagram called Home Meadery is from Poland, and they actually gave me the method that they used to do it and told me to use buckwheat honey. Now, buckwheat honey is fucking amazing. I'm sorry for cussing and cursing and swearing, but whatever, mate. That is absolutely, by far, probably one of my favourite honeys of all time. I do need to get some more, and I need to make some other mead from it. So this is a Mézsör, which is a dry Hungarian style of mead. And what they do is, instead of using grape juices for the fermentation, they drain the juice off making wine, and then they add the cases, or the carcass, or the shells, whatever you want to call it, to the must, and it must give it some sort of flavour, like a tang, I suppose. I've not actually tested that one. That one's due to be tested really soon. That was bottled on the 29th of the 11th, so 6 months after that would be 29th of next month. So that's going to be getting tested. Now this was a sour mead that I tried to put together using gooseberries, lemons and mint. Now it's going to be interesting to see how it's aged. The gooseberries were from my garden and the mint was from my garden. The lemon was store-bought and that was 15.8% when it finished. Yeah, bit of a weird one. Just wanted to try something out of the box, and you know, because most people think that mead has to be a certain way. It certainly doesn't. You know, you can have a sweet mead, you can have a dry mead, you can have a sour mead, you can have a spiced mead. You can have it any which way you want it, and that is the beauty of brewing your own. You can make it exactly how you want it. So moving on, we have a winter warmer. Now, I've had a friend try this, and he said he really enjoyed it, but he probably wouldn't have the chili in. He'd probably just have it with the summer berries, and he said he could drink a bloody lot of it. Now, I really like it as it is, but I think I understand what he means. I think it would be also very nice without the chili in there. So I'm going to redo this one under a different name, but it just won't have the bird's eye chilies in. And that one's 15.4%. Now, the Oakedbosche. A bochet is where you basically caramelize the honey. So you cook the honey within an inch of its life, which gives it a charred caramel flavour. And then after it finished fermenting, I rested it on some oak chips, American oak chips. And this one's 15.5%. So moving on is the exotic melomel, which has mango, papaya and pineapple in. So I used fresh fruits for the initial part of it, in like a frozen fruits for the initial part of it in the fermentation. And then, as with a couple of these fruited ones, now what I tend to do is I'll add after, once the fermentation's finished, add up some dried fruit in there. And what that does is it brings all the natural sweetness from the fruits forward again. Now, with the exotic one, you can't really pick out a specific flavour. It's all a bit like drinking alcoholic tropical juice. So yeah, that's that one. And that's 16.8. Now, this is the Lavender metheglin. Right, okay. I thought that this was going to taste absolutely horrendous. The lavender that I put into secondary was from my garden, and the lavender honey itself was absolutely gorgeous. It was so different, it just stood out. It was so nice. And with this one, I tried to stop it as early as possible to retain sweetness, so I didn't have to put any more honey in, because I think that's the most expensive honey I've ever bought. And that landed at 12.7%, which is nice. It's just enough to give you the buzz, but I don't think it's enough to kind of give you that ethanol taste as well. I'm looking forward to see how that's come on, because when I bottled it, it was gorgeous. Next along the line, we have a Cyser, which is a mead consisting of apple juice as the fermentable instead of water. And I just used store-bought apple juice from a carton, and yeah, a shed load of honey, and that one landed at 16.3. I did have the problem with it not settling out and clearing very well, but it has seemed to clear a bit more in the bottle, which is good. Then moving on to another one that was absolutely flipping awesome is a Acerglyn, which is a maple syrup mead. You may have seen a video recently of this being bottled. This sat at 15.2. Now, it had gone dry from the fermentation because I didn't manage to stop it early enough. So what I ended up doing is adding another bottle of maple syrup to sweeten it back up, and it's just mega. It really was, like, I couldn't believe how good it was. And I tasted it a few weeks after, once it had cleared out, and the flavour had diminished a little bit, which maybe brought a bit more of the honey flavour through as well, which is good. But yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't completely disappear on that. And the final one that I have bottled at the moment is a Ukrainian Hot mead. It uses wheat rusk, which is why it's still got a bit of a cloudiness to it, and it used hops. Now, I might have ballsed up with this one. I may have had too much hops because it is extremely hoppy, but we'll see how that fizzles out in, you know, the next 6 months when we test one of the bottles. Now, other than just these here, there's also one in a demijohn at the moment, which is called Mash and Mo, which is a chocolate marshmallow mead, which I've been experimenting with. So yeah, that'll be getting bottled soon, hopefully. And in between doing that and all these, I also brewed a sake, a Japanese rice wine. Unfortunately, it's come off. Again, there was no way of testing the ABV with this, because you literally add loads of water and rice. You introduce an enzyme which breaks down the carbohydrates, the starches, into sugar, and then a yeast that's in there with the enzyme then starts breaking down the sugars into alcohol. So you kind of get a dual fermentation. Now, this is bottle 1 from vessel 1. Now, there was 2 of them. One of them never really took off and it tasted disgusting. And the other one that I did in between all this as well is a sweet potato wine, trying to use the same method as the sake, where I would convert the starches from the sweet potato into sugar to be fermented. Now, I'm not sure whether this is going to taste the way that everybody else's sweet potato wine tastes, but you know, it is what it is. It was an experiment. I can't tell the ABV because it was just absolutely full of mush, so I don't know what that is, but we'll check it in 6 months. And yeah, it was worth a pop. Got to give it a go. Right, and so I'm going to go show you now the 3 that I've got brewing at the moment.